The story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke is one of the greatest mysteries in American history. It is about a group of English settlers who tried to start a colony in North America during the late 1500s, but then disappeared without a clear trace. Historians, archaeologists, and storytellers have all tried to solve the mystery of what happened to these people, but to this day, no one knows for sure. The story includes adventure, hope, hardship, and an unsolved mystery that continues to fascinate people more than 400 years later. In the 1500s, European countries such as Spain, France, and England were exploring the world and claiming new lands. Spain already had powerful colonies in Central and South America, full of riches like gold and silver. England wanted to compete by creating its own colonies in the New World, which we now call North America. Queen Elizabeth II supported explorers who wanted to build English settlements overseas. One of the most important figures in this story was Sir Walter Raleigh, an English nobleman and explorer. In 1584, Queen Elizabeth gave him permission to start a colony in North America. Raleigh never went himself, but he sent explorers to find a good place for settlement. These men reached the coast of what is now North Carolina and discovered Roanoke Island, a small island between the mainland and the Atlantic Ocean. They thought it would be a good location for an English colony because it was easy to defend and close to the sea for supplies. The first English attempt to build a colony on Roanoke Island began in 1585, led by Sir Richard Grenville and Ralph Lane. Around 100 men stayed on the island to explore and prepare for future settlers. At first, things went fairly well. They met local Native American tribes, including the CROATOANs and the CROATOANs, and tried to trade food and learn about the area. However, the relationship between the English settlers and the Native Americans soon became tense. Misunderstandings and fights over food led to violence. The settlers also struggled to grow enough crops and get supplies from England. Life became hard, and when Sir Francis Drake, an English sea captain, stopped by in 1586, the settlers decided to give up and return to England. The first attempt to colonize Roanoke had failed. Despite the failure, Sir Walter Raleigh did not give up. He organized a second group of settlers in 1587, hoping this time to build a permanent colony. This new group was led by John White, an artist and mapmaker who had also been part of the earlier expedition. Unlike the first group, this one included men, women, and children, a total of around 115 people. This showed that the English were serious about building a real community, not just a military base. The settlers sailed across the Atlantic and reached Roanoke Island in July 1587. When they arrived, they found signs of the old colony, but it was in bad condition. Some of the buildings were destroyed, and the settlement looked abandoned. Still, they repaired what they could and started over. Shortly after their arrival, John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, gave birth to a baby girl named Virginia Dare. She was the first English child born in the New World, and her birth gave hope to the colonists. However, this happiness did not last long. The settlers soon faced serious problems. They were short on food, and their relationship with local Native American tribes was uncertain. Some tribes were friendly, but others were angry because of earlier conflicts with the English. The settlers were afraid to travel far for food or to hunt. The colony depended on England for supplies, so the settlers urged John White to return to England and get help. White did not want to leave his family and the colony behind, but as the leader, he agreed that it was necessary. He promised to return quickly with more food, tools, and settlers. John White left Roanoke for England in August 1587. The trip across the Atlantic took several weeks, and when he finally reached home, he tried to organize a new supply mission. However, his timing was unfortunate. In 1588, England was at war with Spain, one of its biggest rivals. The Spanish Navy, known as the Spanish Armada, was preparing to attack England. Because of the war, Queen Elizabeth ordered all available English ships to be used for defense, not for overseas travel. This meant that John White could not find a ship willing to sail back to Roanoke. It took 3 years before he was able to return. Finally, in August 1590, he managed to get a ship and sail back to the island. He was full of hope that his family and the settlers had survived. When John White arrived at Roanoke Island in 1590, he found the colony completely deserted. The houses were gone, and there were no signs of struggle or fighting. It looked as if the settlers had simply vanished. The only clue left behind was a single word carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. The word referred to the nearby CROATOAN Island, today called Hatteras Island, and the CROATOAN tribe that lived there. White also found the letters CRO carved into a tree. Before he had left in 1587, White had told the colonists that if they ever had to move, they should carve a message into a tree or post to show where they went. If they were in danger, they should also carve a cross as a warning. The carving said CROATOAN, but there was no cross, so White believed the settlers had moved peacefully to live with the CROATOANs. Unfortunately, bad weather prevented White from sailing to CROATOAN Island to look for them. A storm damaged his ship, and the crew refused to continue the search. Heartbroken and helpless, John White had to return to England without ever finding his family or the settlers. He never saw them again. Over the years, many people have tried to solve the mystery of the lost colony. Several theories exist, but none have been proven with absolute certainty. The most popular idea is that the settlers moved to live with the CROATOAN tribe. They may have joined the Native Americans, learned their ways, and blended into their community. Later reports from other explorers described Native American groups with gray eyes or who spoke some English words, which supports this theory. Another idea is that the settlers tried to move inland, possibly to the Chesapeake Bay area, where Raleigh had originally planned to build the colony. However, they may have died during the journey or after arriving there because of hunger, disease, or conflict. Some people believe the settlers were killed by hostile Native American tribes or by the Spanish, who might have found the colony and destroyed it. However, no evidence of a battle or attack was ever discovered at the Roanoke site. It is also possible that the settlers simply died from lack of food, sickness, or harsh weather. The area was difficult to farm, and they were far from help. Over time, the survivors might have scattered, with some joining nearby tribes. For centuries, explorers, historians, and archaeologists have searched for clues about what happened to the lost colony. Many digs have been done on Roanoke Island and nearby Hatteras Island. Some small artifacts have been found, such as pieces of pottery, tools, and European-style objects, but nothing that gives a clear answer. In recent years, modern technology has been used to study the mystery. Satellite images, ground radar, and DNA testing have all been tried. One interesting discovery is that some Native American families in the area have English DNA, suggesting that the settlers may indeed have mixed with local tribes. Still, historians remain cautious, because DNA alone cannot prove that these people came directly from the lost colony. The First Colony Foundation and other research groups continue to study maps, artifacts, and old documents. One map, drawn by John White himself, had a patch covering a spot on it. When researchers looked under the patch with special light, they found a hidden symbol of a fort, possibly marking where the colonists planned to move. Archaeologists have since explored that location, but the evidence is still unclear. Even though the mystery has never been solved, the story of Roanoke has become an important part of American history and culture. It represents both the hope and the danger of early exploration. The settlers were brave to travel across the ocean and start new lives in an unknown land. But their story shows how difficult survival was without proper supplies, knowledge, or support. The tale of Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America, adds a human touch to the legend. Many poems, books, and plays have been written about her and the lost colony. The story reminds people that history is full of unanswered questions, and that the past still has secrets waiting to be discovered. Today, Roanoke Island is a historical site. Visitors can go to Fort Raleigh National Historic Site, where the colony once stood, and learn about the people who vanished more than 400 years ago. Every summer, an outdoor play called The Lost Colony is performed there, telling the story of John White, Virginia Dare, and the settlers. It is one of the longest-running outdoor dramas in the United States. The Lost Colony of Roanoke remains a symbol of mystery, courage, and human endurance. It was England's first attempt to build a permanent settlement in North America, and though it ended in disappearance, it paved the way for later colonies like Jamestown in 1607. John White and his settlers came to a wild, unknown land full of promise and danger. They faced hunger, fear, and loneliness, yet they dreamed of a better life. Their fate may never be known for sure, but their story continues to inspire curiosity and imagination. The word CROATOAN, carved into a wooden post, stands as a haunting reminder of a lost dream, a dream that helped shape the history of a new world.